Evening, ladies and gentlemen, episode 184 of RickCast. I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. We are back at it, it looks like, this evening here on September 15th, 2025. Yes, and things have continued to escalate. And so, what are we going to talk about tonight here on RickCast? We'll talk about how JD Vance is everybody's kind of the right. They are gaining traction behind JD Vance and his call that there can be no unity with people on the left, which is pretty incredible. Hearing the vice president of these United States saying something like that. I'm not saying good way, bad way, just incredible to see it happening. We have the FBI catching flack correctly. No matter what Kash did with his Valhalla salute, people are starting to say, well, did you know about the guy before? And of course, Kash is like, yeah, he was on our radar like every other one of these people. But he wasn't, this dude wasn't going to a traditional Latin mass, so they didn't really care about him. If he was going to a traditional Latin mass, they would have caught that sucker like Tuesday afternoon. So you have that as well. And then you have a very interesting tweet from Marjorie Taylor Greene, of all people. And it is that Marjorie Taylor Greene today called for a national divorce. She said, I just want a national divorce from these people. That's what I want. I just want one. And I think she's just the first. MTG, kind of crazy. Yeah, right. Little loud mouth, little bullish, like a bulldog. These are not negative things to say. I'm not trying to say things negatively, like politically. She's a bulldog. She's very outlandish and so forth. Reasons why a lot of us enjoy some of the things she says. But then, how many, because the thing is, if she says it, how many other reps in Congress are thinking it? How many other people are actually thinking it? Because when people like this, when these things are said, Permit, you're not going to like my Isabella Brown take then in a couple minutes, but either way. But it's interesting. It's interesting that this is starting to boil. And this is all theoretical, hypothetical, whatever you want to call it, could the assassination of Charlie Kirk lead to the eventual national divorce? It very may well be. But we're going to talk about all that and kind of go through. Yeah, Brick. I think a lot of people this weekend, came to that realization. Like the illusion has shattered. And I said this last week. The illusion has shattered for many people of what we're really dealing with. I mean, let me see. Hold on. Omaha. Did you guys know that recently, let me see here if I can find this, 2 weeks ago, that a Catholic priest was attacked during a daily mass in Omaha. He wasn't hurt, but these things are happening more and more. So it's interesting where this is all going. So thank you guys for hanging out with me as everybody is strolling in, as the toolbox opens up and they are starting to assemble. And let's see here. Do me a favor, ladies and gentlemen, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell if this is your first time in. If not, then why aren't you subscribed or any of these other kinds of things? And it's interesting, the race between the left and the right to ascribe who has been more violent. Who has been more violent? Right, you had Destiny, that foul creature on Piers Morgan's show, talking about political violence and all these other kinds of things, and The problem is that the DOJ only counts right-wing violence. All the things that were happening on the left, like the Black Lives Matter protests, the Antifa riots, those were protests, guys. Those were not acts of violence. So we have this, when people are saying, well, the 13 of the largest 20 protests ever were under Donald Trump, or all these protests, all these mass events were happening under Donald Trump, all Donald Trump with his political rhetoric. And we had Steph, our local liberal. Thank you, Stephanie. She sent a message to me she posted a reply from last Friday's show. Richard, there's been 13 evidence of political violence according to AI. And then I sent her the Breitbart link. And she's like, I'm not going to read it because it's Breitbart. Well, Breitbart lists every single news outlet. You don't have to believe Breitbart. Just click on the actual links. But they don't want to do that. The left can't get around the fact that they are the violent group because they have been told that they are the rebellion. They have been told that they are Harry Potter because those are the only two things that they've ever read. Maybe the Hunger Games or whatever else, whatever young adult fan fiction they've been reading. They've always been told that they're the good guys. So when this happens, and over the weekend, they were like, I was a cis white male Republican. And we were like, no, it wasn't. And it doesn't matter what the DOJ will say because they're not going to believe it. They're going to say, oh, well, the DOJ is lying because it's Trump. Okay. So we have all of these things. I don't think the National Guard is actually in Memphis yet. I don't actually think the National Guard is in Memphis yet. So I don't know if they've saved it. Soon they will save it, but not yet. So it's interesting the race to do that. And unfortunately, let me see if I can find this quickly. It's not working because I'll get to my sponsor in a moment, but check out this post from AF Post. 24% of Americans believe a Republican killed, assassinated, murdered Charlie Kirk because the left has been working overtime to try and prove that. So I'm sorry, Joey. It is the busiest time. It is, but I appreciate you hanging out with me, bud. I have a huge announcement towards the end of the show involving Joey. Actually, I'll say it now. We have a Joey and I, along with a couple of other men, are starting a new show on this Wednesday. We're still working out how often, whether it's going to be weekly, bi-weekly, or so forth. But we are proud to announce, and let me see if I can get this up for you guys. The creation of, let's see, presentation image. Here we go. Yes, because I only do things in the most effective manner possible, which is slow and not great. We are announcing that this is starting Wednesday. We have formed the Council of St. Michael. This is going to be a show done either every other Wednesday, maybe every Wednesday if it gets popular. And it's me, Joey, a gentleman on X called Trad Operator, and the representative from Catholic Preppers United. And we're going to be doing this show, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of things: spiritual preparedness, physical preparedness, prepping, firearms, logistics, legal aspects to consider. This is going to be the premier show when it comes to all the questions that are being brought up in the Catholic sphere. What do we do? Catholics are looking for answers. Catholic men are looking for answers. And I am proud to have Joey, who has been doing this, going to churches for almost 10 years. He's going to be on here. He's got a whole SOP, a standard operating procedure on how to establish security teams, what you need to do with your volunteer groups. He is awesome. with that. So I'm so happy to have him on there. Our gentleman from the Catholic Preppers United, the representative of that organization, he's going to talk about every single thing you could do when it comes to the area of prepping. Like, he is an expert's expert on that. Trad operator, he's a vet. He's got some experience in a lot of different areas that I know he's going to be valuable and bring to the table as well. I say this proudly. I am probably the least experienced out of the four gentlemen. And I'm pretty smart in a lot of areas with this stuff. I'm pretty smart, and I have a pretty good knowledge base in a lot of the areas we're talking about. These guys are experts. And these guys are chomping at the bit. You can see Joey in the chat room. We cannot wait to get out here and because now people are paying attention, and we are going to come after it. And the Council of St. Michael will start 8 p.m. Eastern on this channel. 8 p.m. Eastern on this channel. So it'll be right after this show Wednesday nights. It's going to be streamed on X. It's going to be streamed on Rumble. And it's going to be awesome. And I'm very proud that these guys accepted my offer to do it, because if I did it, it would just be kind of be so. But to have this collection, and hopefully we'll be able to get on other men as well to help deepen the discussion. I want this to be the premier place. So if a Catholic is looking for answers, that they're coming here. So once again, the show is called The Council of St. Michael. It will come on 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. We have our first show the 17th. So this upcoming Wednesday, we hope that you guys will join us here. And yeah, I just was inspired with the cowboy. Because here's the reason why I went the cowboy aesthetic, is because everybody does like the Knights of the Round Table thing. And it's great. It's a great aesthetic. I just didn't want to get lost in that aesthetic. And it's kind of ironic that 3 out of the 4 of us are Texans. So I know Joey, myself, and Trad Operator, we're all Texans. So it's kind of like, well, it just kind of naturally fits. You know, we need men to step up. So I'm very proud to announce the Council of St. Michael starting this Wednesday, and it's going to be a great show. It's going to be a great show on that. So thank you to Joey. Thank you to Trad Operator. Thank you to all these guys for honoring me by joining, by saying yes. Because they all could have been like, nah, but these men have a skill set and a knowledge base that you all are going to benefit from in a way that, you can't find on X. Not that there's bad or anything else. I just think we've got a really good set of men ready to go. So, so yeah, thank Joey in the chat for saying yes. Because if he didn't say yes, I wouldn't, and same with Catholic Preppers United, and same with Trad Operator. And of course, I'm going to reach out to other Catholic men that are experts or that have experience. So yeah, Joey's like the Texan. He's like I'm the Johnny come lately. I'm married into Texas, right? You could question my Texas citizenship. I married a beautiful woman from El Paso, so that's how I'm a Texan. I'm a Texan by marriage. That's my joke. I always tell people when I tell them I'm from Texas, they you don't sound like you're from Texas. Well, no, I'm not. I married into I got my citizenship that way. Still counts. Giga Maggies. Although the Aggies did beat Notre Dame this weekend, which was a really good game, but it is in that regard. All right, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, he is a Texan through and through. And Trad Operator's a Texan as well, so it's gonna be good. I love it. All right, let's it still counts. I hope so, right? I hope so. That's what I was trying to make sure. Like I wasn't born here, but I got here and the thing about Texas women, when you marry one, not a condition, but they let you know pretty quick, we ain't leaving. Right? We ain't leaving the state. Like my wife's made it pretty clear. We don't leave Texas. So that's how it goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen. enough of me blabbing on and yakety yakking and so forth. Let's get to our first story and stuff of the day. But before we get to that, we are going to talk about our sponsor of the program, which, ladies and gentlemen, I am blessed to have tradflags.com be the sponsor of this show. Tradflags.com is an amazing sponsor because they are out there taking up space and giving Catholics a great ability to evangelize without having to say anything, right? They can go out there and you can evangelize with the beautiful flags, 3x5, double stitched, thick flags. They'll survive Texas weather. They'll survive any of your weather. This month is the Seven Sorrows of Mary, but you can also get November, December, January. They have 12 months of flags. They also have garden flags. They also have magnets. They got Father Ripperger mugs. They got all this great stuff. They're also the first and only company to step up and support RickCast. So if you are looking for some great Catholic gear, check out tradflags.com. If you like any of the stuff at tradflags.com, use the promo code RickCast. Gives you 10% off your order. Promo code RickCast at tradflags.com. And we thank the great people at tradflags.com for supporting the program. All right, ladies and gentlemen. So let's see. Where is it? I know I'm all over the place today. It's the first of the week. What do you want? I'm going to make some people mad this week. I'm sorry, but I am. And why can't I get... All right, I guess I have to redo this. I'm going to make some people angry in the next couple minutes, Joey, so I'm sorry. Let me see if do I have to, like, lower this now? Or... Stupid X with your stupid posts. All right, great. No, never mind. The post is great. Yeah, let's talk about this real quick. Let's talk about this. Political e-girls need to stop. They do. I wish I had my machismo alarm because I'm going to upset a ton of political e-girls right now. Not that I don't think you have a plate. I'm not barring you from the movement or any of these other kinds of things. But this is gross. Oh, whoever mentioned Isabella, yeah, she's gross too. So I think women need to stop. Not be quiet, not sit down, not any of the things that you're going to accuse me of. But if your church didn't mention Charlie yesterday, it's time to find a new church. Sweetheart, I think you need to stop talking. Because I think you're missing the point of church. Erica, and I watched part of Erica Kirk's speech on Friday night. Very powerful, amazing female to step there just a couple days after her husband was assassinated to give a very powerful war cry for Turning Point USA and for people who were looking for some kind of strength. You can tell she's a mother because she has that kind of reassuring, nurturing presence coming out. And she said, if you don't have a church, go to a church this weekend. Go to a church. Become part of a church. She did not say, go to a church that worships my husband. And this is the problem with the secular religion that is politics. Somebody said it in our chat earlier, and I'm sorry about that if I forget. I think it was Brick. We've lost God and we've replaced God with politics. And when you replace God with politics, you get this stupid nonsense. You get this stupid nonsense. Last time I checked, the Bible doesn't talk about Charlie Kirk. And I'm not saying this I'm not trying to diminish Charlie Kirk. I hope nobody takes that way. I'm not trying to. The man was assassinated. And, I prayed for his soul yesterday at church with all the souls of the faithful departed. I got a long list of people I pray for at church. I added his soul in yesterday. But Sarah, shut up. Will you stop talking? You are not a faith leader. This is why women are not put in charge of matters of the church. It is. This is the reason. You're too emotional. You're too emotional in this regard. If your church didn't talk about Charlie, you need to find a new church. You know, think whatever you want about Justice Scalia. When Justice Scalia died, his son presided over his funeral. And Father Scalia had one of the best homilies at a funeral ever. And he essentially said, "We're here for a great man." And that man was Jesus Christ. That's what the Mass is for. Your church should be centered on God. More importantly, our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who died for our sins, who knew he was going to die, picked up the cross in the most masculine display of strength in the history of mankind. And the fact that we are now going to try and politicize this to say, women, find a new church. You got to hop churches until you find the church of the Charlie Kirk. I think Charlie Kirk would be mad at that. From what I've heard about him, he pointed people towards God. Now, we all as Catholics are like, it wasn't the Catholic faith, but at least I've always said, at least if you're pushing people to God, you're in the right direction. And once you get to that, and once you study the faith, you naturally come to Catholicism. But at least you're going in the right direction. You got Sarah here hooting and hollering. Why didn't you talk about Charlie? Because church is not about Charlie. And then you have this dummy, Isabella Maria DeLuca. If your church refused to mention Charlie, find a new one. Like, did all the women get on their signal chat and say, hey, we all have to put this message out? No. Sorry, ladies. You are fools. Sarah Gonzalez, where's your husband to be like, don't tweet that? Don't put that out there. Because the question becomes, who do you worship? Who do you worship? And I think that's a question, and both of these women and all the other women that put out there were ratioed back to the Stone Age appropriately. They were commented on appropriately. Now, of course, there are the simp men that are like, you're right, we have to talk about Charlie. Please like me. I understand that. And I have my thoughts on Benny Johnson. Here's the thing, Michael. I will say this. I don't follow Benny Johnson. I didn't see the Benny Johnson tweet. Of course, I have my thoughts about Benny Johnson, and I think Benny Johnson is essentially a high-paid ambulance chaser for news coverage. And Benny Johnson needs to be called out. I'm sure he got ratioed back to the Stone Age too. Michael, thank you for telling me that Benny Johnson said it first, but it's incumbent upon these women to not repeat the message, to not make it a point, to not try and shame people. My church I went to, they talked about violence needs to end, and we need to, end this kind. That my priest talked about it in the context of, hey, Tuesday we learned about Irina from Charlotte. Everybody forgot about her and the violence that took her life, and the fact that violence of all kind needs to end. But the fact of the matter is, Charlie can be stupid. I'm not Charlie. Sorry, Benny Johnson, not Charlie Kirk. God rest his soul. Benny Johnson can be stupid. Oh, that's right. Dean, you told me this, and I completely forgot. Benny compared him to St. Stephen the Martyr. Benny Johnson, shut your fat face. Like we talked about last week, I'm not a theologian. I'm not going to debate. I know Father Nix has made some things about Charlie Kirk being is a martyr and stuff like that. I do guns and Catholicism. I don't do anything outside of that. And I'm not trying to get into that with Catholics, and because there's some other Catholics that have done it too. And that's fine. You guys want to talk that way. You obviously have some more knowledge than I do. I'm going to stay in my lane. But I am going to call out these witches, and I am going to call out Benny Johnson. Don't do it, man. Stop worshiping humans. Stop putting humans. Aren't these the people too? Isn't Sarah Gonzalez? Isn't Isabel Maria DeLuca, whatever her name is? Aren't they the ones that go after Catholics? I don't know. Is Benny Johnson Catholic? Because if he is, then that's, or does he claim to be Catholic? I don't even know. Aren't Protestants always telling us we worship idols, or we worship Mary and we worship all these other people because they're not God? Y'all doing the same thing with Charlie Kirk right now. The poor man is dead. Pray for his soul. That's what you do. You do not base your religious views around Charlie Kirk. And Isabella, what truth are you speaking if you talk about the evil? Okay, so Benny Johnson's a Protty, so I can make the statement. If you Protestants come after us for worshiping Mary, what are you doing right now? What are you doing right now? You are destroying every argument you've ever had about not being a part of the Catholic Church. I don't want to be a part of the Catholic Church. You guys worship idols. You guys are literally telling people to hop churches until they find one that worships Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk was not big into worshiping idols. Little weird. It's a little strange. Remember, not a theologian, not very smart at all. But I can at least say, you guys are saying we worship idols. Now you're telling people to find a new church if they don't talk about Charlie Kirk. What's the dealio, homie? And it's Benny Johnson, and it's Sarah Gonzalez. Shame on Sarah Gonzalez. Shame on Isabella for retweeting and promoting that message. How many views did Sarah Gonzalez get? She got 3 million views. How dare you? And I know I sound so terrible when I say that. How dare you do that? How dare you come after Catholics and you wave us off? We have problems with your man-made religion. By the way, go to a church that worships Charlie Kirk. Peace, guys. Like, come on. Can you acknowledge, Sarah, the hypocrisy of your own words? Just acknowledge the hypocrisy of your own words and I'll move on. I will shut my face and I will move on. You won't. You won't. So forget that. I'm sorry. This was, as you can tell, I've been kind of sitting and pondering this all day. And it's just disgusting. And I think it's disgusting to the memory of Charlie Kirk, to be honest. And I'm not a guy that agreed with a lot of what he said. But I know he did one thing, and he was trying to point people back towards God. And now you want people who are trying to go, because there was a lot of people. I asked my wife when I came out of Mass on Sunday, it's like, did the church feel a little bit more packed than usual? A lot of people were reporting all over X. My church was packed. Protestants, evangelicals, Catholics. Church was packed more than it's usually been. So instead of using this as a call to go to church like Erica Kirk did, she said, if you're not a part of a church, go to a church. Become part of a church. You dummies, you political clout chasers, dare I say, you brood of vipers, use this opportunity to venerate somebody in a religion that you claim not to venerate anybody but God. Do better. And so, yes, I was obviously a little upset at what this is right now. So it's pretty sad that we couldn't take this moment this weekend for people who are like, I just went to church for the first time in 10 years, in 20 years, ever. I picked up a Bible for the first time ever. These are good things because as Catholics, we know if you start looking into the faith, there's only one place you end up, and that's here, and that's home. But no, they have to tell you, no, we have to. And I guess it's because within the political podcast realm, because remember, we're dealing with the fact that Charlie Kirk was the glue that held the entire right-wing alternative media together. If you listen to Tim Pool, if you listen to Crowder, and Crowder didn't even talk to the guy that much, but even Crowder would admit, I watched a couple of his shows last week, they all told about the influence that Charlie Kirk and Turning Point had. I think they're afraid because it feels very rudderless right now within the Catholic alternative media sphere. You have Ben Shapiro, who's like, I'm going to pick up the mic and I'm going to go to colleges. And everybody's like, no. We talked about that Friday. Megyn Kelly's going out and doing a speaking tour. Other people's are going out and doing speaking tours. For lack of a better term, there seems to be a power vacuum or an influence vacuum, whatever you want to call it. And everybody's trying to scramble for better. Some have good reasons because they want the movement to continue. Some may have less than great reasons as to try and fill that space. So, shame on Benny Johnson, shame on Sarah Gonzalez, shame on Isabella, whatever her face is, for pushing that. Yeah, they all have to be afraid. They all have to be worried because the violence has come. The chickens have officially come home to roost, despite the fact what the left is saying. And that is a perfect transition, Michael, as you are a huge help to this. I bet nobody saw this story today. 2 men were arrested in Utah after incendiary devices were found under news vehicles. 58-year-old Adib Nassar and 31-year-old Aldi Justice Hami Nassar, both booked as white, by the way, were just arrested in Salt Lake City for placing a failed bomb under a news van covering the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Nobody's talking about this today. Destiny's out there running around screaming about right-wing violence. Our dear beloved Steph, when she joins, screams about right-wing violence. And we say, well, what about this? Well, they're obviously, it's in their smooth brain thinking tells them, well, it's in a Republican state, so they obviously, every single person that lives in Utah has to be a conservative. By that logic, every single person that lives in California is a liberal, which is false because the largest amount of votes that Trump got in 2020 and 2024, the largest segment of Republican votes came from California. The largest chunk of votes came from California. But the way the left is spinning it, and we'll talk about it when we get to the actual suspect, we'll call him a suspect because, like you, I have no idea what the FBI and what's going on here. I don't know if that the kid's the suspect or if it's somebody else. I don't know. I don't subscribe to any specific, this is the guy that did it idea. I don't know. I'm only reporting on what the official narrative is. You guys tell me your opinions. I respect that as well. This is more radical left-wing violence that is not going to be covered, that is not going to be talked about, that is going to be a tweet and moved on. Maybe some people like me will say, hey, guess what? This happened the same week that Charlie Kirk was assassinated. There were bombs placed under news media vans covering that assassination. And I'm sure I reposted it. I think Joey's seen it too. The video of troons running around doing their own troon shooting competition. I know there are socialist gun clubs across these United States. There's one in Fort Worth, there's one in DFW, and there's one in Austin. And they post all the time about the training they do. And it's completely, at least up to this point, been uncovered or not covered, not brought to light as they continue to point the finger at right-wingers, at white men. Like I said, these 2 men were booked as white men. Yeah, because Aldil Justice Amin Nassar is a very common Scottish name. But these people are out there. They're training. They've been training. You know why they've been able to train? Because they've been given leniency. They've been given clemency by the federal government. The federal government's been too busy infiltrating Latin masses. The federal government has been too busy looking into right-wing veterans groups or gun clubs or anything else like that. You post a "Don't Trend on Me" flag, you got drones flying over your house. We saw the DHS alerts throughout the Biden administration. If they have a "Don't Trend on Me" flag, if they have the Protestant flag, if they have a 2A sticker, if they're a Trump supporter, if they go to city council meetings or they go to PTA meetings and they don't want their kids to be told that they can be a cat who has 5, breasts, then they are obviously right-wing terrorists. True, Permat. It actually probably could be a Scottish name by now. So they're right. They are. They have been taught and they are learning how to do this. You had 2 men do this operation in Utah. Nothing. Silence. Except the news media will say, well, I think it's time for the right to tone down its violent rhetoric. I think it's time for the right to reassess their violent tones. And then I don't want to play the video, but Destiny was on the Piers Morgan show. And Piers Morgan was like, when do we turn the temperature down? And he said, well, Trump shouldn't have got elected a second time. And why doesn't the president of the United States tone down the rhetoric? And Anna Kasparian, of all people, said, you're a discredit to leftists, to Democrats and leftists with your rhetoric, Destiny. Destiny celebrated the death of the firefighter at the Trump assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. He celebrated the death of that man. Hassan Piker, some of you may not know him. He's a large streamer on Twitch, and Twitch is a bastion of just hell of liberalism, furry tranny nonsense. They've been talking about how you have to punch a Nazi. Remember when punch a Nazi was a thing? And they were okay with the violence against rights because we're all Nazis. I remember there was a guy in Rhode Island I used to go back and forth with. We weren't friends, but we kind of, because we were both in news. He put out a famous post that said, we'll get him before, we'll get him again. And the first one was a picture of a German soldier, and then superimposed upon him was a person in a Nazi hat. It's like, we'll get him before and we'll get him again. Yeah, credit to Anna Kasparian. She's still a leftist, but she's had some experiences that have jolted her awake from the left, the extreme left. Good for her. And Cenk Uygur, I think he's a despicable person, but the assassination of Charlie Kirk, because Charlie Kirk brought him to the last AIM Fest. Even he's like, bro, this is kind of ridiculous. And Cenk has said some awful things. I think Cenk's worried about his own safety, but still, this entire thing is running out of control. And that brings us to our first story of the night. And this is an amazing statement from an elected official. I am not ascribing a positive or a negative to this. I think it's an amazing statement, and I think it proves that we have gone to, as Spaceballs puts it, ludicrous speed towards some pretty eventful things. Some things, some actions, some events that will alter the history of this union. I'm not trying to be hyperbolic, but you have the president, the vice president of the United States saying this. Come on, man. I'm trying to transition to this.
There is no unity with people who scream at children over their parents' politics. There is no unity with someone who lies about what Charlie Kirk said in order to excuse his murder. There is no unity with someone who harasses an innocent family the day after the father of that family lost a dear friend. There is no unity with the people who celebrate Charlie Kirk's assassination. And there is no unity with the people who fund these articles, who pay the salaries of these terrorist sympathizers, who argue that Charlie Kirk, a loving husband and father, deserved a shot to the neck because he spoke words with which they disagree. Did you know that the George Soros Open Society Foundation and the Ford Foundation, the groups who funded that disgusting article, justifying Charlie's death, do you know they benefit from generous tax treatment? They are literally subsidized by you and me, the American taxpayer. And how do they reward us? By setting fire to the house built by the American family over 250 years. I am desperate for our country to be united in condemnation of the actions and the ideas that killed my friend. I want it so badly that I will tell you a difficult truth. We can only have it with people who acknowledge that political violence is unacceptable, and when we work to dismantle the institutions that promote violence and terrorism in our own country.
So, Mark, you're right, which is why it's an amazing event. Because how many people, if they didn't say anything, agree with the hundreds of people that have been on Twitch or on TikTok or on Instagram or on X celebrating the assassination of a man? How many people looked at those reels, didn't want to comment, didn't want to say anything because they didn't want to lose their job, because the right is actually done? And I know Steve and I have talked about this. They have gone right now. The right is desperate for some kind of retribution. You know, justice is mine, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. But they're doxing people and they're getting people fired. I will not say whether that's a positive or a negative thing. People on the right are looking for justice and vengeance. This is the most peaceful way they can get retribution. Because I guarantee you the trial, the way the FBI is handling this, and we're going to get to it in a moment, is not going to give us retribution, or it's not going to close this chapter. Because the suspect, Tyler Robinson, like we've talked about, is in custody after a manhunt and faces charges while the motive remains uncertain. Apparently, the suspect, Tyler Robinson, has not confessed to the crime. Unfortunately, James, I do not want to say this, but I think it's going to move to more skirmishing. The left is emboldened right now. Now, left-wing media is scrambling to try and say it was a cis white male from a conservative household, even though the great Family Guy meme, and I should have had it, said the shooter wasn't trans, and everybody goes, yay! And then Lois goes, but his boyfriend was, and everybody goes, oh, right? And Tim Pool was on his show saying, well, just because you dated trans doesn't mean you're left. Okay, Tim, got it. I understand you're a disaffected liberal and you don't want to lose people. But if you date a trans person, you're probably going to be more left than anything else. Sorry, not sorry in that regard. But the fact is this rhetoric by J.D. Vance is only going to embolden the left to think that they are in danger and that they must act. Now, Vance says he wants unity. Part of me believes that. However, when you start off by saying there can be no unity with people who do this, that, and the other thing, I don't think we understand, or I don't think the right understands how many people on the left are willing to go with the extremists. About 41 million. Not all 41 million are going to act out and do this and do that, but you can be pretty sure that the majority, let's be conservative, 75% of the people that voted for Kamala in one way or another agree on something like, oh, they're trying to take away my rights, as a lot of women will say. Or remember what Joe Biden said in 2016? They're going to put you all back in chains. Or 75% of people who voted for Kamala are afraid that Trump is a fascist dictator Nazi. So it's interesting. And now it looks like J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller talked about, because J.D. Vance covered for Charlie Kirk's show today. And it looks like they are going to go after the financial backing.
Walk me through at a high level, like what you and I have been working on, what the whole administration has been working on to try to make sure that we don't reward and promote this craziness.
Yes. So it's an excellent question. I said this before, but it bears repeating. The last message that Charlie sent me was, I think it was just the day before we lost him, which is that we need to have an organized strategy to go after the left-wing organizations that are promoting violence in this country. And I will write those words onto my heart and I will carry them out. If people ask me, what emotions I'm feeling right now, this is something people say, you kind of know the answer. There's incredible sadness, but there's incredible anger. And the thing about anger is that unfocused anger or blind rage is not a productive emotion.
Right.
But focused anger, righteous anger, directed for a just cause is one of the most important agents of change in human history.
Charlie showed that. Amen.
And we are going to channel all of the anger that we have over the organized campaign that led to this assassination to uproot and dismantle these terrorist networks. So let me explain a little bit what that means. So,
I've got 30 seconds, so be quick, Stephen.
The organized doxing campaigns, the organized riots, the organized street violence, the organized campaigns of dehumanization, vilification, posting people's addresses, combining that with messaging that's designed to trigger and incite violence, and the actual organized cells that carry out and facilitate the violence, it is a vast domestic terror movement. And with God as my witness, we are going to use every resource we have at the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, and throughout this government to identify, disrupt, dismantle, and destroy these networks and make America safe again for the American people. It will happen, and we will do it in Charlie's name.
So, good and bad from that. I always like to try and look at both sides. I think it's a good thing. I think it should have happened a long time ago. It probably should have happened in Trump's first administration. They should have gone after the bankrolling, the banking of these organizations. Like Antifa needs to be designated as a terrorist group. I'm fine with that. And any of the things that are being tossed out there. Let's look at the flip side of that. If that happens, let's say that happens. Let's say the left is defunded or put in a position that weakens them. What is the most dangerous animal? The most dangerous animal is a wounded animal. And so I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. I'm not even saying what JD's personally, when I watch these things, I understand Brick. I understand why he's mad. That's his friend. That is a person that was gunned down. That's a person who's now a father who, and JD's in the political sphere. And like somebody said before, anybody that's in the political sphere, yeah, of course they're angry. And of course they're scared because they don't know unless they take this bull by the horns and unless they get after this, who would be next? Who could be next? So I'm glad to see that they are going after the financial levers. I think it should have happened sooner, but we'll see what the response comes from that, because the left is not going to just roll up and say, okay, you got us thing, good game, blah, 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 this and that. They have drawn blood, and there is a visceral enthusiasm on the left for it. I'll say that again. There is a visceral enthusiasm on the left for the drawing of blood. And where does that take us? I don't know. This is RickCast. Like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. Let's get to our next story of the night, which is, the FBI is not great. Yeah, the FBI is kind of trash. From the Post Millennial. Can you guys stop with your ads, please? I know you got to pay people, but stop it. Post Millennial. I have an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk. Kash Patel says killer wrote in a note ahead of the shooting. Let's listen to Valhalla Kash in this statement. I did it again. Go.
His family has collectively told investigators that he subscribed to left-wing ideology, and even more so in these last couple of years. And he had a text message exchange, he, the suspect, with another individual, in which he claimed that he had an opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk and he was going to do it because of his hatred for what Charlie stood for. Those are factually accurate investigatory findings by the FBI that we've handed over to the local authorities and the federal authorities to make their prosecutorial decisions. But I believe in this instance of such public importance, the public has a right to know. And I've told you I'm committed to transparency, and that's what I'm doing here today.
Why didn't that person that he was talking to, why didn't that person say something?
Our investigation is ongoing. That's a great question, and we don't have an answer on that just yet.
I know, I'm muted. Sorry. So, here we go. Thank you, guys. The problem with Kash is that he just did the meme. Say the line, Kash. Say the line, FBI. We had him on our radar. We had him on our radar. We had thoughts that things were gonna happen, but we didn't do anything. Of course, I'm not a fan of pre-crime either, but check out this from Cassandra McDonald at the Gateway Pundit. FBI attempted to hide the identity of Charlie Kirk's assassination suspect's transgender boyfriend, which the left is scurrying to say, well, he's not, he's just this male from a conservative family. Okay. Sure. But the FBI tried to hide the identity of the transgender boyfriend and the suspect of this assassination. The FBI tried to keep the gender identity of the trans partner of Charlie Kirk's killer a secret because it had been extremely cooperative with authorities. Sources familiar with the case said that Lance Twiggs, which somebody said, I don't believe that's his real name, can't be his real name, but then again, he's like a furry trans, so whatever. He was aghast when he was confronted with investigators over his lover's alleged assassination plot. I'm sure this is all post-event happening aghast. Investigators are looking into whether Kirk's alleged killer was motivated by his belief that the conservative activists' views on transgender people were hateful. Discord messages, why don't you do this, Kash? Bear, why don't you do this, Kash? Why don't you show us the Discord? Why don't you show us the messages? Well, why don't you show us that stuff? Oh, the investigation's ongoing. Valhalla. Right, Pink Camo? That's why people like Heavy Duty Country, Candace Owens, these people are going, there's no way. They all are on the side of, there's no way this kid's the shooter. There's no way this kid's the shooter because there is so much, the FBI under Kash has been such a complete disappointment that this whole thing has spun out of control. That's right. That's right, Daniel Miller. Text it now. And Daniel Miller, did you see the post from MTG? We're going to talk about that in a couple minutes. MTG is calling for a national divorce. She's calling for it. We're going to talk about that because you had JD Vance talk about there is no unity with the left. By the way, big shout out to Daniel Miller, the man when it comes to Texas. I've had the honor of interviewing him, and I am a proud member of the Texas Nationalist Movement. JD Vance has said there can be no unity. I don't know. Of course, he tries to say that with people who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. I think there's a lot of people that silently celebrated outside of the people that did. Now you have the fact that the FBI is hiding information. They're saying they hid it because he was cooperative. You and I probably ascribe to the idea that he hid this information, that the FBI hid this information because the boyfriend's transgender. The boyfriend's transgender. We don't want people to be upset by that. And Cassandra writes, it appears as though a large number of people in fringe online transgender communities knew about the plot in advance. That's right. That's right. That's right. Dude, this is huge. Daniel Miller's watching my show, man. Salute to you, sir. The transgender community knew about this. The furry community knew about this. And because the FBI is too busy looking into conservatives, yeah, Lime Honey, it looks like the transgender, probably. I don't know anything about the transgender. So no, Mark, you should. No, Mark, we'll have we'll trade with you guys up there. Don't worry about it. Neighbors reported suspicious out-of-state visitors to the Robinson home in weeks leading up to the shooting, describing them as giving off a bad vibe. And yet the FBI under Kash is like, well, guys, the investigation's ongoing. And you know what that leads to? That leads to this. He already knew it. And now, apparently, Kyle Sarafin's having a field day with this. Investigation into the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That's taking place this week. Oversight over the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Kash is in trouble. And he should be. But the FBI should honestly be disbanded. And this is a case for it. But the fact that the FBI has let this whole thing completely wild. Let's be real. Remember, and Tim Pool loved the guy. You know, I watch the guy every night. He's like, let's give Kash and Dan credit. I think they did some stuff. They released the photos. If the parents didn't turn the kid in, who knows if he'd still be on the run. Okay? Kash wants the FBI job. He needs to take accountability when they drop the ball on this. And so we'll see. I don't think Kash is going to suffer any fate, but he should. He should have been fired. He should be fired. He should have been fired this weekend. He should have been fired this weekend because he's terrible at his job. And then we should disband the FBI. All right. While Daniel Miller is here, I want to move on to our last story of the night, which is this one. Huge today. I'm going to get rid of the chat, guys, so people can read this. Marjorie Taylor Greene dropped this today, this morning. And I'm going to drop it. Where is it? She said it. Where is it? Come on, she says it. It's like in the fourth line. I just want a peaceful national divorce. Yep. You're right. You're right. Also, Daniel, remember when Kash went on Joe Rogan's show and he tried to say, guys, if I had video that would prove it, you think I would hold it back from you? You think I would lie to you? And everybody in unison went, yes, you would. I think it was absolutely key at this point. But right here, she says, I want a peaceful national divorce. And the reason I highlight this is because Marjorie Taylor Greene is about 6 months ahead of what everybody else is saying. She'll say out loud what everybody else is talking about in Congress. Because remember, the Congress is a uniparty. They all hang out backstage together. It's WWE. And I think this is going around. And I think this weekend has made the writing, as to say, on the wall. There's nothing left to talk about with the left. They hate us. They assassinated a nice guy who actually talked to them. Then millions on the left celebrated and made it clear they want all of us dead. Because what did they say? Lists went out. They have a shirt that celebrates the death of Charlie Kirk. They have people saying, you're next, all this other kind of stuff. You had the street interviews. Hey, do you support the person who killed Charlie Kirk? Yeah, I would have done it. and so forth. She is the first elected official. I think maybe Rand Paul maybe said it once or twice. I know Ron Paul said it at some points. She's the first one in Congress right now saying, I want a peaceful national divorce. With J.D. Vance's statement today and the actions that will take place, and I'll say what Michael has said before, the assassinations of the 60s led to the turmoil of the 70s. The next 10 years are going to be bumpy between the economy and this cold, becoming lukewarm, potentially hot civil internal conflicts, not political, but actual internal conflicts here in these United States. MTG is saying our country is too far gone and too far divided. I don't think she's wrong. And I think there's a lot of people on the right and the left that believe this. Remember, California has its own secession movement. We have the secession movement from most of Oregon. Or Washington? No, Washington, Oregon. One of those two states up in the Northwest. I don't know. They're both the same. They got a lot of green and they're both filled with leftist nut jobs. One of those two up in the North, they want to join Ohio. And then you have multiple others. New Hampshire, Vermont, I think, has one. Alaska has one. Hawaii has one. All of these places have their own internal movements to separate. There's been a lot of calls to separate. That there's 330 million people. I mean, that's the old one. It's probably closer to 350, maybe 360 with the illegals in this union right now. Like I said, 41, however many people voted for Kamala, 41, 45, 48, that voted for Kamala, that don't like Trump, that think Trump is the Third Reich, the Fourth Reich is happening right now, that the Department of Education being dismantled and all these other kinds of things, and the ending of SNAP and USAID and all these other things are falling down the wayside. Can right and left coexist? I don't think so. I think it's going to take a decade to figure this out. But you have an elected official who is legitimately saying it's too far gone. You have Jasmine Crockett. She doesn't have a seat anymore. And she's still going out and saying, Charlie Kirk got killed because of white supremacy. She's still running around saying that stuff. By the way, her and Al Green no longer have seats in the House. Of course, I don't know, Mr. Miller, when we text it, can we get all the good people out of Houston and then leave Houston? Although Houston has a port, so maybe we need to send in the National Guard to reestablish Houston. I don't know. We could talk about that when we get there. But the fact of the matter is, how many people are silently agreeing with this? It's a question. And good for her for saying it, because she's saying what a lot of us have been saying. I sent this to Cunningham, and he was like, oh my gosh. So, it's a spiritual revival. She continues, it's painful, but what will happen on the outside, not within the halls of our government? Democrats are hardening their belief and will try to flip it back as soon as they can. So she is trying to tell you that there is nothing left in the political arena for a solution. There's nothing there. Mr. Miller tweets, if DC is ever exposed for being truly powerless, then it'll only be a matter of time and months before this thing splinters like frozen galaxy. Yeah, I agree. And I think, Mr. Miller, I always joke that I wish California goes. I am the first one in line that's like, I hope California succeeds. Because as soon as they do, we're gone. Florida has its own movement too, I believe. But this idea that, And I think, Daniel Miller, that that's one of the things Trump's doing by putting the National Guard in these cities is kind of a reestablishment, almost kind of like a Washington with the whiskey tax kind of deal. I'm not saying they're similar, but there are, because history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And I think it rhymes in this way that Washington dispatched the military for the whiskey rebellion to show the power of the federal government. And I think Trump is trying to follow something similar to that. I think Trump is trying to follow something very similar in the way that he's dispatching the military into these cities to reestablish that the feds are the ultimate authority. The problem is, I don't know. The National Guard in Cali pushed people into the Calexa camp. That is interesting. I did not know that. I did not know. That's fascinating. But this idea comes from where is the when will people realize, Mark, California may be big, but who has control over it? Right? Who has the left has all the levers of power in California. They may be massive, but if it's a unified effort on their part, then it could happen. Whenever we think, and Mark, I appreciate you saying that. Whenever we think like, oh, this is too big, or this group's too this or that, remember they shut down the country 5 years ago over the sniffles. Anything can happen. I don't believe that I don't subscribe to the theory that nothing is off the table. Gerrymander. He's their best representative, Daniel. he's their best representative in California. And that kind of goes back to remember when we were back to talking about trivial things like the Texas redistricting and how bad that was and how big of a deal Democrats tried to make it here in Texas and what they were talking about here. It's all cascading. It's all cascading. So big credit to MTG for what she had to say there. I think she's saying what a lot of people in DC are thinking, that they're coming to this hard reality. And of course, there's a lot in DC that are like, I don't care because we have the levers of power, left, right, or center here in DC. And as long as the illusion exists that we have all the central control and authority, then we're going to exercise it. So we're just going to have to see. But good for MTG for saying, listen, guys, the right and the left are at an inflection point. Okay? We saw earlier J.D. Vance and Stephen Miller, they're going to leverage the power of the federal government against the banking of the left. How's the left going to respond to that? The FBI is not going to give the country the union any kind of closure or unity because they've boggled that thing horribly. Nobody believes anything that's coming out around the official narrative. And now you have members of Congress who are saying, listen, I don't know if there's a way out of here. So today is another day that I don't know if it'll be looked at in the history books, but if this thing goes the way a lot of people are starting to speculate, it's pretty momentous. Pretty momentous to have the vice president of these United States saying there's no unity with essentially half of the country. So we'll see how that goes. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you all for hanging out with me here on RickCast. Thank you for everybody that commented. We do this every night, 6 p.m. Central Time. We try to talk about things. We try to take a step back from the left-right narrative. We try to call out everybody. Do me a favor, like, subscribe, share, hit the notification bell. If you are on X, retweet the show so people can catch it in the rewind. If you are catching it in the rewind, do me a favor and leave a comment down below or hit the like button, and that'll help the show grow as well. We will be back tomorrow night here on RickCast. God bless. And as we are saying for the time being, our new ending, our new exit is God bless and God have mercy on the soul of Charlie Kirk.